Greetings from my tub. I'm in here getting 5% cash back when I pay in full with PayPal. No fees, no interest. Make the most of your money this holiday with PayPal. Save the offer in the app.
Ends 12/31. See paypal.com/promo terms. Points can be redeemed for cash and more. Pay in for subject to terms and approval. PayPal link and MLS 910457.
This episode is brought to you by Disney. This Thanksgiving, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are back on the big screen. So grab your family and friends as Disney invites you to return to Zootopia for the phenomenal movie event of the holiday season. See all your favorite Zootopia characters plus new favorites in the most pawsome movie of the year. Don't miss Disney Zootopia 2 when it hits theaters everywhere November 26th. Get your tickets now.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means, and that is Andrew Gillis, and it's time for another episode of Whose High School Kid Is It Anyway? Because it's one out and two in, though in two separate recruiting classes. Ohio State right now in its 2026 recruiting class has a number 9 class overall, and it's down from 22 commits to 21 commits because it did lose one of its 5 offensive linemen, Aaron Thomas, the number 506 player, number 46 offensive tackle from Phoenix, Arizona. And the reason they lost him because it seems like he's going to end up at Florida State, where he's got some family ties. Gillis, this is offensive line day, and we'll get into the 2 juniors in high school later in this podcast. But I want to start with Aaron Thomas. Yeah. What did they lose, and is there a plan to replace him?
Yeah, so they, on Monday afternoon, middle of the day, they lost Aaron Thomas, like you said, attends Mountain Point High School in Phoenix, Arizona, number 506 player in the composite rankings, number 46 offensive tackle. They lost some size, and they lost a pretty valuable tackle. He's 6'7", or at least he's listed at 6'7", 300 pounds. Got a lot of mobility that you like at tackle, and we talk about this like projection a lot. An offensive line is such a projection type of position, right? You got to look and say, all right, if this kid puts on 30 pounds of good weight after losing 20 pounds of bad weight, what does he look like? And I think you see the physical attributes, you see him move well. I like the way that, he kind of projected as a tackle for Ohio State. So you lose a tackle. Right now, you have 4 other guys in the class. Sam Greer is your only other projected tackle. The kid out of Hoban, a really, really good football player. Probably, if I had to guess, would end up as a borderline 5-star in this class. I think he's probably going to be somewhere in the top 50, kind of flirting with that, whether he gets that 5th star or not. I don't think Ohio State really cares. I don't think he really cares. He's a good football player. So you feel good about tackle. You have 3 interior guys, Maxwell Riley, Tucker Smith, Landry Breed. They have told Tucker Smith to do both, guard or center, or to be ready to play both, guard or center. Breed is a guard. Riley's probably a guard. So where that leaves you is you only have 1 tackle. Now, they have been in the market, I would say, for other commitments, other flips, other whatever you want to call it. They have definitely been in the mix for some of these guys. So, Landry, you get Landry Breed a couple of weeks ago. He was an NC State flip. They are interested in Adam Guthrie still. Tyler Bowen a couple of weeks ago made a visit to him. Washington Courthouse kid. He is a current Clemson commit. He has basically said a few times like, hey, I'm committed to Clemson. I like where I'm at. I like the direction that things are headed and blah, blah, blah. What I would say about that is we'll see. Clemson right now is kind of a mess. A lot going wrong at Clemson. It's kind of at the point now where you start to wonder, like, all right, what does this program look like and how much does that change in the next month? And that is why I think Ohio State is keeping after him, not just because he's a good offensive tackle prospect from Ohio, but because they're kind of keeping tabs on that situation of, hey, if this thing opens back up, we want to be there. So he's one of the kids that they're after. Micah Smith from Vero Beach, Florida. He's another tackle that that they are looking out for. He's currently a UCLA commit. He is somebody that keep an eye on. We'll see took an official visit for the game against Minnesota on October 4th. There's Kevin Brown. He's currently a Penn State commit. He's from he's from Pennsylvania. So he's just kind of opened up his commitment just to see what's going on after the firing of James Franklin. But that's where you're at. That's the Thomas decommitment. What else you got in the class? They are looking out for and looking after some flip targets. They are going to try to go into flip mode in this next month because, I mean, by the time you guys are listening to this, the first week of December, it's going to be crazy. They play Michigan. A couple of days later, it's National Signing Day. And if all goes according to plan for Ohio State, it's a Big Ten championship game. And we're only like a month away from all that. So they are hard at work on the trail in that regard. And it's a sizable decommitment, but not in the way of, I can't believe they lost him. This is a nightmare for the class. It's a sizable decommitment because I think you might be adding another big piece or two here down the stretch. That was a lot.
They might be adding another one. Do they need to? And here's the reason I'm asking this question, because this is a roster management question. So Sam Greer, true tackle, Maxwell Riley, guard, but he could play tackle if they needed him to play tackle. I mean, Austin Saravel's playing left tackle right now. Donovan Jackson was playing tackle. And then you're saying Tucker Smith's an interior guy, right? But he's also 6'5", 280.
Tyler Bowen likes the big boys on the inside.
He does. He's also got a 6'5" man playing left tackle right now. He's doing it pretty well. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, 6'5" is like position flexibility a little bit, right? Especially the way they're going to teach these kids. They're going to have a primary and then a secondary position when they first get here in the spring. So I think the only guy, and then Landry Breed's probably a tackle. So there's probably only one guy, and that probably is Tucker Smith. That's the only guy who's like, if he's taking reps at tackle in the spring, you're like, what? Okay, so that's 3 potential tackles. Austin Saravel can come back.
Yep, third-year guy.
Philip Daniels can come back.
Third-year guy.
Devontae Armstrong can come back.
Second-year guy.
Ian Moore can come back.
Second-year guy.
Carter Lowe can come back.
First-year guy.
Okay, and Justin Terry, who we're forgetting about, who's like the second string right tackle right now, he can come back. So you've got 6 tackles on your roster right now who could all be back on the roster next year. Plus you got one guy who's for sure a tackle, another guy who's probably a for sure tackle in Landry Breed, and a third guy in Maxwell Riley who could play tackle if he had to play tackle in a pinch. So that's, what is it, like 9 tackles?
Yeah, the future set up well, and you know, I know from people in the building, I'm not saying, like, look, there were obviously people at Ohio State that, you know, were close with Justin Fry, that recruited with Justin Fry and everything like that. And one of the things that I think rightfully so, and fans rightfully so, had problems with were, you know, you don't have as wide of a net as you should. You're not bringing in the number of players that you should, and blah, blah, blah. But I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they said, you know, for as much as Justin Fry got a lot of guff, he did leave that offensive line room for Tyler Bowen in a pretty decent place. And, like, did it have to happen with Saravel going to tackle? Yeah. But
that's a very
Saravel at tackle, like, there is a very real possibility that next year you have Saravel as a 4th-year guy at left tackle, Daniels as a 4th-year guy at right tackle, and I think Philip Daniels has started to slip this year. I don't think he's played as well as he was playing at the beginning of the year.
He's also playing more snaps.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, like we'll see if that changes. You know, maybe they, you know, especially like when they get to the playoff and he gets some time off or something like that. But then you have Carter Lowe, who, you know, I've really liked, and he just looks like a first-round pick walking out there. But he's going to be going into his 2nd year. You've got Ian Moore, who will be going into his 3rd year. I mean, if I had to bet money on one of the starters that is returning that could be overtaken next year, I would probably say it's Philip Daniels. And I think it's partially because Daniels is not, I mean, it's been a mixed bag with him, but Ian Moore, I think, is really, really good, and people in the program really, really like him. So the tackle situation, you could have a 2 deep right there. And, you know, hey, we talk about Ohio State in the 2024 season. Oh, no team can win a national championship when you're down to your 3rd left tackle. It's like, yeah, but at that point you would have 4 that you would feel comfortable with playing tackle, and none of them would be kind of, I don't think, overstretching or kind of pushed beyond their bounds. Carter Lowe was a top 75 kid, and he would be in his 2nd year with the program at that point. Like, you should expect him to come in and not fall all over himself, embarrassing himself, right? That's a kid who you expect, you know what? Hey, this is a kid that he's been here. He should be able to get it. And even if he's not great, he should be able to at least handle himself. You should feel really good about the tackle situation.
It's kind of the offensive line altogether, right? I mean, Ethan Inyama was the only guy who technically couldn't be back in 2025. That's like part of the key here is, sure, the room was left in a better place than it was, but it wasn't about where it was going to be in 2025. It was about where it was heading after that.
Right.
And that's where Tyler Bowen bringing in, like you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You have 14 of your 15 offensive linemen who could all be back on this roster next year, relatively speaking. And that's without obviously taking the transfer portal into effect. From an eligibility standpoint, all 14 could be back, and you're going to add 4 to that mix. So you could have as many as 18 guys, and who knows what you're going to do in the portal. So that's what we're talking about. Just the numbers are fine to where I don't know if 12 months ago you go, hey, I know they just lost a tackle, but they might add another tackle. My answer would be, yeah. But do they need to? It would be, well, they better find themselves another tackle because you need a tackle. But no, you're going to have plenty of tackles. You're going to have plenty of guards. You're going to have plenty of centers, which is why I think it sounds like you and everybody else who covers recruiting is talking about this like, we're not poo-pooing the player. It's just the you lost a guy who's probably going to go home to Florida State, where his dad played. Mm-hmm. It's fine. This isn't a sound the alarm situation the way it would have been 12 months ago. And sure, some of that is a credit to what Justin Fry left behind in terms of quality, but it's also what Tyler Bowen is bringing in to make sure that there is both quality and quantity. That's the key to the trench play. Quality and quantity on both sides of the ball. And that's what you have right now on the offensive line. So there's that. You lose Aaron Thomas. Speaking of quality and quantity, let's take a break, and then we're going to break down the 2 guys they did bring in, because it does seem like Ohio State's 2027 class is starting to get going here, which is about right. It's November. You're a year out from that class's signing day. This is when you start to see some of these guys come along. Some of these guys are playing high school varsity football for the first time, and they're getting their junior filmed in. So this is probably about the right time. But Ohio State did add a couple of guys to its 2027 class. So we'll get into that when we come back from the break here on Buckeye Talk.
Hey, welcome into Walgreens.
Hi there.
Hey.
All right, hon, I'll grab the gift wrap, cards, and, those stuffed animals the girls want.
Great. And I'll grab the string lights and some... How about I grab some cough drops?
This is not just a quick trip to Walgreens.
I'm fine, honey.
Well, just in case. You know what they say. 'Tis the season.
This is help staying healthy through the holidays. Walgreens.
Tires matter. They're the only part of your vehicle that touches the road. Tread confidently with new tires from Tire Rack. Whether you're looking for expert recommendations or know exactly what you want, Tire Rack makes it easy. Fast, free shipping, free road hazard protection, convenient installation options, and the best selection of Firestone tires. Go to TireRack.com to see their Firestone test results, tire ratings, and reviews, and be sure to check out all the special offers. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
Hello, friends. Guess who? That's right. It is I, the Replacer. Once again, I've been called on so you can play the new Call of Duty, Black Ops 7. With 3 expansive modes, 18 multiplayer maps, and the tastiest zombie gameplay you've ever freaking seen.
Available November 14th. Pre-order Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Now, rated M for mature.
From Curtis 50 Cent Jackson.
Tommy back.
Yeah, I am.
And the executive producers of Power.
There's levels to this game.
Comes the final season of Force.
We're gonna have to be careful about our next move.
We get what we can now, take the rest later. This is gonna be the battle of our life. It's go time.
This is a dangerous life that I choose to be in with you.
Force.
Never bet against me, because I'm always win.
Premieres November 7th, only on Stars and the Stars app.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means and Andrew Gillis breaking down the offensive line recruiting, because that's what's a buzzin'. Ohio State up to 5 guys in its 2027 recruiting class, which now has it as the number 3 recruiting class in the country. It's still headlined by a quarterback and a wide receiver, because of course it is. Jameer Brown, the number 5 player, number 1 wide receiver in the country, and Brady Edmonds, the number 141 player and the number 11 quarterback in the country. Dropping a little bit. I'm a little shocked by that. He's still 6'5", 220. The traits are still there, man. Let's start with Kellen. Wymer or Weimer?
Wymer.
Wymer from Liberty Center, Ohio. He's 6'5", 265, which means he's going to be eating a lot of cheeseburgers between now and whenever he gets to campus.
Mm-hmm.
Number 216 player, number 10 offensive lineman in the country. He's listed as a tackle. Is he in the world of we're having these conversations of is he a tackle or is he a guard? Is he a tackle or is he a guard? Tell us about Kellen.
Yeah, I mean this is a really good football player, and the Liberty Center product. I was talking to his coach, and he was basically like, yeah, it's this hasn't really happened, and they don't get Ohio State players up in Northwest Ohio at Liberty Center, right? And he was kind of talking about what that meant and basically how dominant of a football player he's been, and he's like, he's really kind of been that type of kid that has always been a really good football player, handles himself the right way, things like that. I think one of the things that you probably like about him is that you could convince me that he plays tackle. You could convince me that he plays guard. And you could convince me that he plays on the left or the right. And I think it's a little bit more solidified with Wilt, judging by what I saw. With Wymer, I do think it's absolutely on the table for him to kind of play that. You mentioned, he can eat a lot of cheeseburgers. He's also a high school junior. He could hit a growth spurt, right? You gain another inch or two in high school, and all of a sudden now you're 6'7", and that changes the math pretty significantly, even though it's only an inch or two. So I think tackle with him is probably where you end up, but he's also just a really good football player that's physical. He's athletic. He could play left or right, inside or outside. This to me is a really, really nice ad for Ohio State. And, I said this to you guys offline, like, the way that they're building this class, and we'll get into this kind of at the end, but you feel pretty confident in taking this kid right now. And it's one of those, man, he's a good football player. We'll just figure it out. And how many times have you heard that with, like Will Campbell got drafted by the New England Patriots, right, in the first round. And Mike Vrabel, I think he did an interview with him, and he was kind of like, or did an interview with media, and he was kind of like offended that somebody was like, well, is he a guard or a tackle? He's like, I don't know, man. He's a good football player, and we're going to put him somewhere, and he's going to be really good. And I think that's kind of the same thing with Kellen. It's just, you got a damn good football player, number 216 overall prospect. Like, I like this kid a lot, and I think the upside for him is pretty high.
I wonder if he's also playing defensive line right now, because that would explain why he's not other than the fact that he's 16 years old, that would explain why he's not 300 pounds. Yeah, right. He's probably a very good player, since you can't play in the Big Ten. Can't play on either side of the ball, Big Ten.
And also Liberty Center, I believe they're Division 5, so they're not a massive program. Just for people that are
at 265.
Yeah, he's probably, I have not seen him play, but for context, he's in a playoff bracket with Liberty Benton, Norwayne out of Creston, Edison out of Milan, Fairview out of Fairview Park, Oak Harbor, Port Clinton. Like, these are not and I'm not trying to disrespect any of these schools. These are damn good football programs. It's just, he's not going to a high school with 2,000 kids, so he probably has to play a little bit of everything, and that might be a reason why.
That's a fair point.
I actually haven't even looked into whether he played defense. That's a good question.
I would assume so. If he's going to a small school, he's probably playing both ways. I would assume so. Okay, that's Kellen Wymer. Now we got Mason Wilt from St. Clairsville, Ohio. This is the second time they've pulled a kid out of high school. They got Avery Henry back in 2022 from the high school as an offensive lineman. Unfortunately, Avery Henry medically retired for health reasons, but he's made public, so this is not known information. But Mason Wilt, the number 518 player, number 33 interior offensive lineman, he's 6'5", 295. He too is going to have to eat some cheeseburgers, but maybe just a little less. What Kellen's going to have to eat over the next 12 months of his life. Tell us about him. I'm assuming this is the guy where guard center is where he's going to be at.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all thought that Austin Serveld was going to contend for a guard position, and now he's one of the best big tackles in the Big Ten.
Sure.
So, anything is possible, and I think that is part of the reason. If, I've never asked Tyler Bowen, specifically, hey, Tyler, big guys are good, right? I've never.
Tyler Bowen is a large human being.
Oh, he's a massive guy, and I think the funniest thing, how those kids do these recruiting things. Had a great visit at blah blah blah.
He's bigger than the kids he's recruiting.
They post pictures, and it's just it'll be of him walking onto the field, like the 4-picture thing of him walking onto the field, of him standing with his parents, who are also usually larger human beings, of him standing with Tyler Bowen, and they're normal. Some of these kids are shorter than him, and then them standing with Ryan Day, and they're so much taller, and you're like, Ryan Day's not that short. Like, Ryan Day's not all that short. Tyler Bowen's a massive guy.
He's Ryan Day's just an average sized human being. Tyler Bowen is just massive, which is what he wants massive dude. What have I said before? He wants big dudes who can move.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I think the answer is as simple as like big people push people around. I mean, he did play college football at Maryland, and like this was not current Maryland. This was your older brother's Maryland, where they had Ralph Friedgen and they were, winning 9-10 games a year in the ACC, and they were a damn good football program. So, he did play college football. So that matters. Yeah. Wilt, I think he's probably an interior guy. I think that's probably going to be where he plays and where he just kind of fills out. I like him as an interior guy. I would bet that that's the future for him. I mean, again, anything's possible. Maybe he does kick out to tackle, but I do think Wilt is one of those kids where, you just kind of map out the future and you see guard and you see aggressive and physical and all these type of things that you would want from Wilt. So, he is a little bit lower rated than Kellen Wymer is. He's number 518 overall prospect, number 33 interior guy. But I think he's probably going to hit 4-star status at some point. I'm not saying this kid's going to hit a rocket ship and become the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the class or anything like that. But I do think that he's a really, really good football player. And I think Ohio State's got a nice baseline with him on the interior. And, when you pair Wilt and Wymer together, that's a solid start for Tyler Bowen and the offensive line in 2027.
So what is the outlook for 2027 in terms of, I guess, where most of these kids are going to come from for Ohio State's recruiting class?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because they have 5 commitments right now in 2027. And I'm not going to give you their names because we all probably know them, or if not, you could probably go look them up. But there's a 5-star receiver from Ohio. There's a 4-star quarterback, who, again, remember, quarterbacks commit a lot earlier, who grew up a huge Ohio State fan. There's the 2 linemen that we just talked about. And there's a defensive back from Florida who's the younger brother of a superstar receiver currently on the team. That feels like a good base to have of 5 kids. And those are obviously Jameer Brown, Brady Edmonds, Wymer, Wilt, and then Angelo Smith. That feels like a really strong base to have 3 Ohio kids, 1 kid with Ohio ties who's from California, and then obviously Smith, the Floridian, who's the younger brother of Jeremiah. Then you start to look at what else is possible in this 2027 class, and you start to feel good about it. There's Khalil Johnson, the kid out of Archbishop Moeller in Cincinnati. He's number 178 overall prospect, number 18 offensive tackle, and 281. This is a tackle. Like, talking about Wymer and Wilt and being like, maybe, probably tackle, maybe interior. No, Johnson's a tackle. There's Davis Seaman from Bishop Watterson in Columbus, 427 overall prospect, number 36 offensive tackle. He's 6'5", 270. I've seen this kid, I've watched his tape a bunch. He goes to school very, very close to Ohio State in Columbus. Davis is a good football player. He got his offer a couple of weeks ago from Ohio State, about a month ago. I think he's a tackle. You can end up with 4 Ohioans in your class, and it would not shock me if those 2 that I just mentioned, Khalil and Davis, if they end up in the class in the next handful of months. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, where does that leave you? You've got 4 Ohioans on your offensive line in 2027, and you don't really feel terrible about them leaving. Steven, you've talked about this all the time, where, they will, Ohio State, they kind of make it a point to say, if we're going to offer an Ohio kid, it's probably going to stick, and we probably will stick with it. You take those guys. There's Reed Gherkin up at Perrysburg, who's like a borderline 3-4 star player. There's Lualalu from Winton Woods. He's a 3-star tackle. That school has been kind and not kind to Ohio State in recent years. Justin Hill went to Bama. Jermaine Matthews is obviously a Winton Woods kid. This class can be built pretty much like literally exclusively from the state of Ohio. If Ohio State ends up with 5 kids from the state of Ohio on the offensive line, it should not come as a shock. Now, does that mean Ohio State is, they're locked in and they're only going to take kids from Ohio? Absolutely not. Mark Matthews is the number 1 offensive tackle in the class. He attends St. Thomas Aquinas down in Florida. He is a really, really good football player, obviously. Maxwell Hiller is another really good tackle. They're in on him. Leighton Von Brandt, the kid from Penn State, or he's from Delaware, just decommitted from Penn State. Quaff Ford from Texas. Cameron Wagner from Illinois. Cole Ryder from Wisconsin. Jimmy Callis, they love him. Jimmy Callis has Ohio State ties. He's from Central Catholic in Pittsburgh, and he's a true tackle. They've got options. But the majority of this class could be built from Ohio. Now you can kind of move on, and I think that's why Tyler Bowen and Ohio State felt pretty comfortable taking these 2 kids, because you look at them and say, you know what, we got building blocks now. We can move on. You don't really have a ton of worry, I wouldn't think, about those 2 guys flipping elsewhere. Of course, it's recruiting, and things can get crazy, and there's 13 months until signing day, and you never know. But this kind of gives you the freedom and gives you a free hand to go get some big-time prospects.
So we're not going to go long. Here's my question, then, because I'm glad you touched on guys like Mark Matthews and Maxwell Hyler. And I know Maxwell's a little bit different because he's from Pennsylvania, and Penn State just fired its head coach. So that's a different conversation. I'm not saying that they have to go get him, but I think the doors may be a little bit more open than it was 2 months ago before James Franklin got fired, that you go get that kid. Ohio State has not landed a highly rated offensive lineman that wasn't either from Ohio or had the strongest Ohio ties in the world since 2018 with Nicholas Petit-Frere, to the point that we put a lot into like the David Sanders part of this. And who's the kid who's headed to Miami this cycle?
Jackson Cantwell.
Yeah, like we just didn't do that with him, or the kid who's going to Texas Tech. We just didn't do that with them the way we did it with David Sanders. Yeah, and I know some of that was because this class is better, and they feel like they had to do that. But I also just think my opinion on offensive line recruiting is starting to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So if they get Mark Matthews, we'll celebrate it and we'll talk about it. But I don't know if I'm ever going to live in a world where I'm like, why didn't you get Mark Matthews? And it's because it doesn't happen with the offensive line. These kids don't leave their part of the country, right? Like David Sanders is from North Carolina and he's at Tennessee, right? No, the kid, he's not going to Texas, but he's going to Texas Tech. The Miami kid, that's not far away from where he's from. Well, that's a little bit more far. He's from Missouri. But that Cantwell, but it's just not the norm, right? Donovan Jackson's from Texas, but he's got family that lives in Cincy and Cleveland, and they've got all types of ties up here. So this was coming home for him. Paris Johnson is from Cincinnati, Ohio. This was home for him, right? Even in this class, right? This 2026 class with the kid they got, he's from Northeast Ohio as a borderline 5-star recruit. This is home for him. So I guess my question is this. The way you just described Ohio State's offensive line recruiting, it's a bunch of Ohio guys. And it doesn't mean they're not going to take their shots at trying to get the national guys. But should we put more stock in the Kellen Weilers, the Mason Wilts, the Maxwell Rileys, those guys, more than we do, hey, how come you didn't just go get a 5-star number 1 tackle in the country? When the answer might just simply because he's from Florida. That's why we didn't get him.
That's a good question, because it's offensive line is one of those positions that you would you rather have a guy who is a 4th-year player who maybe has less physical talent than a 2nd-year player? It's like offensive line is one where it's, if you're a receiver, like if you're recruiting receiver, like Ohio State's not going to say, well, we just have to settle for Ohio kids or settle for kids that are in the Midwest.
Yeah, that's
because, we can develop them and they'll play as a 4th-year guy, and we value that over, this guy playing as a 2nd-year guy, right? Like, I mean, like, let's be real. Like, if Brandon Inniss was not on this team, or Jeremiah Smith was not on this team, or Carnell Tate was not on this team, like, obviously that's not good, but they're replacing them with a guy who is stepping in as a 1st or 2nd-year player, and you're like, he should be fine. Like, Mylan Graham stepping into the lineup, there's not going to be a, oh God, we're screwed type of mentality at receiver. Offensive line is a bit interesting. And I think there's a big conversation, and maybe we could do this in the offseason of that, because like David Sanders is starting at Tennessee. and by everything I've read, it seems like he's playing pretty well at tackle. And
he got hurt again.
He did get hurt again. That's sad for
Which
him.
is not, I'm not saying that to be flippant of like, oh, see this why you shouldn't. It's like, that's unfortunate that he got hurt.
That's tough. But it's one of those things where it's like, would you rather have a first year David Sanders at tackle or a third year Phillip Daniels at tackle? It's an interesting question. And I don't even know if there's a right answer to it. But I guess the simple for today answer is, I think you need to hit your singles and you need to hit your doubles. And then when you come up to the plate, you've already got some runs on the board because you had, a really good on base percentage. What's the downside of swinging for Mark Matthews if you've got 3 or 4 kids already locked into the class? Because as we're seeing right now, Ohio State just lost a kid. They have 4 kids locked into the class. 3 of them are from Ohio. 1 of them's from Arizona. And they're still on the warpath for another kid, right? I just listed off of like 3 or 4 kids that they could try to flip in the 2026 class. So that's always an option for you. So it's like, if you just hit your basic stuff, if you hit your layups early, I don't know what the downside to that would be if you've got a baseline.
Yeah, this is not about, they should definitely try to go get Mark.
Sure.
This is not a, hey, you should only go after Ohio kids conversation. This is a perception of how things result conversation. Because even the David Sanders thing, for me, that's not an either or. Like, would you rather have David Sanders or would you rather have what you have now? For starters, they don't miss David Sanders because of what's in the room. They're not David Sanders wouldn't be starting if he were here. He would probably, and to be, I'm not gonna say he wouldn't start as a second year guy. I don't know if these guys are playing that well, but he wouldn't be starting right now. But that's not the point. That's not an option. We're asking the question that isn't actually an option of would you rather have. They didn't tell David Sanders, no, we don't want you. And he kept going, please, I want to come to Ohio State. No, we don't want you. Right. So the option doesn't exist. If the option exists, then let's talk about it. Of course, you'd rather bring a 5-star recruit into your building. I'm saying that the David Sanders description hasn't come to Ohio State. And what I mean by description is a 5-star offensive lineman with no ties here. Ohio State won the recruiting battle. That has not happened since Nicholas Petit-Frere. And even that had extra context of Nicholas Petit-Frere was at the same school as Greg Schiano's kids. So that was the end. So until that changes, and I get why it's like that, right? The offensive line is a developmental position by nature. Wide receiver isn't as developmental as offensive line, right? There's a development here. Obviously, I'm not taking that away, but you're literally changing your body as an offensive lineman in a way that isn't as natural as what you have, the physical transformation you go through as a wide receiver. Like what Jeremiah Smith looks like right now, he could walk around looking like that the rest of his life if he cared enough about his fitness after he's done playing football. The way Luke Montgomery looks right now, he is not going to look like that when he's 45 years old. He is going to lose some of that weight. Look at Joe Thomas. Immediately lost all that weight. You're not supposed to carry around 300 pounds and also be as agile as these guys are. But I'm getting past my point. The whole point I'm saying is I think we're going to come on this podcast and be done with the how dare you not go get David Sanders. And go get the guys in your backyard, go build a quality room and develop that room and have those guys ready to play on Saturdays. And when Paris Johnson shows up, you better get him. And when the Donovan Jackson description of, I live in Texas, but I'm an Ohio baby, you better get him. I think that is where I've reached with the offensive line. Because 2 years ago, we put a lot of stress into the David Sanders thing. When it's like, I don't know, how often is David Sanders coming to Ohio State? Just like how often is Paris Johnson going to Texas? They just that's not what they do. I was
talking to somebody who covers the NFL, and we were kind of talking about, drafting and all that other kind of stuff. And I said, one of the things that I would love to ask, NFL coaches is how you evaluate a player who's been in your program or been in the same program for 3 years versus a player who had 3 coaches in 4 years because it's not just, hey, this dude played in a different offense. He had an offensive line coach who may have a different strategy. He had a different strength and conditioning coach than, one guy at, BYU could have a different thing at Utah and have a different thing at Georgia, right? Like there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I think that is the value that I know, like people will talk about knowing the rivalry against Michigan and knowing what it means to be a Buckeye and all that stuff. And that's great, but it's more of the fact that they just get to develop in the same system. And that is why it's so important, I think, to hit your singles and nail the backyard guys, because you hit that, right? Like you land Wymer and Wilt, and they're not going to be getting, homesick, right?
Right.
I mean,
When they're not
be saying,
playing,
"Oh God, I'm not here. I got to go home to Florida, to Texas, to Washington, to Boston, to wherever." Like you feel good about these kids hanging around. You feel good about these kids. I think Kellen actually grew up a Michigan fan, if I read that correctly. So it's like, you feel good about these kids hanging around.
Whoa. He grew up a what?
Yeah, so I talked to his high school coach, and he mentioned like growing up in that area. I haven't spoken to him yet, so I want to hear.
From Northwest Ohio.
He's from Northwest Ohio, and as somebody that lived in Northwest Ohio for a year, that area is very divided between Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Michigan State.
You buried the lead. Kellen Wymer grew up as a Michigan fan, and he's already on the border of where it's typically a mixture, a melting pot of Ohio State and Michigan fans. That's everything else we just talked about. Cool. That's great. It all stands. Back to Kellen Wymer. This just became a much bigger. I didn't know that. And I don't know how many of our listeners knew that. He grew up a Michigan fan.
Yeah.
And he chose Ohio State as a guy who's on the border at a time when Ohio State has lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
And Michigan's coach is an offensive line coach. Do you understand that this is the equivalent of, like, say if Tavian St. Clair, no, not even Tavian St. Clair. This is the equivalent of if Ryan Montgomery would have gone to Michigan. And he's like, wait, Michigan got the border kid at a time when Ohio State is like quarterback university? This is that is the biggest thing you said this entire podcast. So this just became this was for me a quality win. This is now like the biggest win that they've had all weekend. And they beat Penn State.
I understand it. Like I wasn't in the scrum. I don't know. Like I had a wedding to go to. Maybe it was that weekend or whatever. Or maybe I was just at a different scrum that day. But I believe he mentioned that at a summer camp. And somebody else from our staff might have been there. I think so. So now, again, I want to talk to him and here is okay, did you grow up as I hope Michigan wins the game, or was your bedroom loaded with fat heads of Michigan players?
But yeah, sure, of course. That's about how extreme of a Michigan fan he is. But it doesn't even that. Hey, I grew up watching the game and I was rooting for Michigan.
Yeah.
And now you're about to be a Buckeye at a time when the rivalry is pro-Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Everything right now about a kid like that says he should probably be a Wolverine, and he's coming to Columbus. Yeah, this is a big win.
So
it's a big win.
Do you know when he committed to Ohio State?
Who?
Sunday.
Kellen?
November 2nd. Do you know when Michigan offered him?
I don't know the answer to these.
Friday, October 1st.
Oh, okay. So Michigan tried to get it.
Ohio State offered him over the summer, and Michigan offered him late. They were late to the party, and I haven't talked again. As you're listening to this, hopefully I have talked to him, but
the thing is,
I think that probably had a big part of it.
Probably, but Michigan's done this too, right? Where Michigan has landed some kids from Ohio they were Ohio kids who felt like they were burned because they grew up wanting to be Buckeyes, and Ohio State never really showed the same level of interest. They never really earned the offers, and then Michigan uses that to their advantage. I'm not saying Ohio State is or isn't doing that here, but still, that's what we're riding Michigan week. Ohio State's already beaten Michigan once this year. Can they do it again in the thing that matters most? That's a great way to wrap this up. Kellen Wymer is a Michigan fan, and he's headed to Ohio State at a time when Michigan's won 4 in a row, and their head coach is an offensive line coach, and a pretty damn good one. Whether you think he's a good head coach or not, we can have that conversation another day, but he's a good offensive line coach. Lincoln Riley's a good quarterbacks coach. It doesn't mean he's a good head coach. 3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. I don't have anything else after that. That's just completely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of it.
They stole a Michigan fan.
That sounds a little, the phrasing on that, the context of they stole a Michigan fan.
I said what I said.
Stole him so much as he just willingly opened the door and walked in.
I said what I said. 614-350-3315. That'll wrap things up. Kellen Wymer, Mason Wilt, the latest additions to Ohio State's 2027 recruiting class. Aaron Thomas, no longer a future Buckeye. as a number 506 player, number 46 offensive tackle in the 2026 recruiting class. The other ones are 2027. I think I said 26, and they're 27 kids. So the 27 class is off and running, up to 5 kids as the number 3 class in the country. And the 26 class has 21 kids and is number 9 in the country. That was a lot of numbers I just threw at you guys. Offensive line recruiting is in a good spot. And if the Matthews kid or any of these other 5 stars who aren't from this area of the country don't end up Buckeyes, I don't think we need to be blowing down the house about it. But it also means that when you do get one in your backyard, that kid better be a Buckeye. So because it goes both ways here. You can't. Okay, fine. You're not going to get the David Sanderses of the world, but you need to get the Paris Johnsons of the world, and that's why I think that kid Hyler from Pennsylvania. I think there is there's probably an opening there with Penn State trying to figure some things out and maybe in a little bit of purgatory until they find a head coach here. So 614-350-3315. That'll wrap up this recruiting pod. As you're listening to this, we're gearing up to talk with Ryan Day as the Buckeyes prepare for their 9th game of the season. If you watched our 2 big things video, Stefan and I joked that we're going to limit how often we say Purdue's name this week. And I said that video was probably the first time this week you've heard anybody say it. I'm officially lying because I just said Purdue's name. But they play Purdue this week. So we'll have stuff and intel off of that. For Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.